Everyone in the grand hall turned to see the young girl standing by the buffet table. Her simple clothes, a stark contrast to the opulent gowns and sparkling jewels that adorned the guests. She had come with nothing but a polite smile and a heart, full of hope, carrying the weight of her humble upbringing in her soft steps and nervous eyes. The mistress of the house, a woman known for her sharp tongue and cruel demeanor, immediately noticed her and smirked, thinking how easy it would be to humiliate this poor girl in front of everyone. She approached with exaggerated elegance, her heels clicking on the marble floor like a judge about to pass sentence. Well, what do we have here?" she said loudly, her voice dripping with mockery. "Is this some kind of joke? Did someone let the help into my party by mistake?" Gasps echoed around the hall as everyone turned to watch, some whispering, some laughing nervously, but none daring to speak against the mistress. The girl's face flushed with embarrassment, but she held her chin high and replied softly, "I was invited by Mrs. Clark. She asked me to come." The mistress laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "Invited by Mrs. Clark? Surely she doesn't mean you, little pauper. You don't belong here among these people. Go fetch the cleaning supplies or something. More fitting for your station." The girl's hands trembled slightly, but she didn't shrink away. She knew the world judged her by her clothes and not her character, but something inside her refused to bow to humiliation. The mistress, sensing the audience's attention, leaned closer and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Look at her, all nerves and dirt. One day, perhaps she will learn her place, but not today." The guests chuckled, some politely, some maliciously, but all were watching the spectacle unfold. Suddenly, a kind voice spoke from the other side of the hall. "Leave her alone, Evelyn. There is no need to insult someone who is our guest." The mistress turned her glare toward the voice, a cold, calculating stare that made even the bravest hesitate. But before she could retort, the girl stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "I am not here to disturb anyone. I came to celebrate with Mrs. Clark and her family. If I am causing offense, I will leave." The mistress's eyes narrowed, her pride wounded not because the girl dared to speak, but because she did so without fear. The laughter died down as whispers spread through the hall. Who was this girl who could speak with such dignity? The mistress, not used to being challenged, decided to escalate her cruelty. "Dignity?" she scoffed. "You think you have dignity? Look at yourself. Your clothes, your shoes, your hands. Everything about you screams poverty. Tell me, do you even know how to behave among people of wealth?" The girl took a deep breath, steadying herself. She had lived all her life in modest surroundings, had faced insults and scorn, but she had never let them break her spirit. "I may not wear expensive clothes or jewelry, but I was raised to respect others and myself. True wealth is not in what you wear, but in how you carry yourself." Murmur ran through the crowd. Some faces were curious, some skeptical, but none of them expected such composure from someone they had judged so quickly. The mistress's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Composure?" she said. "Let me teach you a lesson in humility." She raised her hand, intending to point at the girl's simple dress, to draw more ridicule, but before she could, the sound of a door opening caught everyone's attention. A man entered the hall, tall, imposing, and radiating authority. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. He was impeccably dressed, exuding power and elegance in a way that demanded respect without words. The girl's eyes widened in surprise and recognition. This was her father, a man whose name was whispered in boardrooms and on stock exchanges. A billionaire whose wealth was matched only by his influence. He'd been searching for her, worried that she would be vulnerable. In this unfamiliar world, the mistress froze, her mouth opening slightly, unable to comprehend the sight before her. The girl, realizing the gravity of the moment, stayed calm. She stepped forward toward her father, who knelt slightly to hug her, whispering words of reassurance and pride. The guests were in shock, their whispers now turning into audible gasps. "How could someone so poor-looking be the daughter of the richest man in the country?" The mistress's face paled, her arrogance crumbling as she realized her grave mistake. She had humiliated someone who not only belonged in the hall but owned much more than she could ever dream of. The girl's father spoke, his voice firm and commanding. "Evelyn, I think it is time you learned the consequences of your cruelty." The room was silent except for the mistress's shallow breathing. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The girl stood tall, her dignity unshaken, and for the first time, the guests saw her not as a poor girl, but as a young woman whose spirit and lineage commanded respect. The tension in the room was palpable as her father continued, "This girl is my daughter. She is welcome in every corner of this world, including this hall. Your insults have no place here." Evelyn, the mistress, tried to defend herself to save her reputation, but it was futile. The crowd had already seen the truth and their judgment was silent but clear. The girl, now surrounded by her father's presence and the protective aura of her wealth, smiled gently, not out of malice, but with the grace of someone who had endured hardship without bitterness. The mistress's world, built on arrogance and the humiliation of others, began to crumble as she realized that the power she wielded so effortlessly over the poor and meek had no hold over someone like this girl. Every sneer she had ever delivered returned to her in sharp clarity, and the room watched as she shrank in humiliation. The girl's father guided her to a place of honor, a subtle gesture that left no room for doubt about who truly belonged in the room. Guests who had laughed at her earlier now looked at her with newfound respect and curiosity. Conversations shifted. Whispers filled the air about the mysterious girl who had entered so humbly and now commanded attention without uttering a single threatening word. The mistress tried to regain composure, adjusting her gown, trying to smile, but it was hollow, failing to mask her growing panic. The girl's calm presence seemed to expand, filling the hall with dignity and self-respect, while Evelyn's arrogance melted away like wax near a flame. The lesson was clear to everyone present. Cruelty has a price, humility has power, and true wealth is not only in money, but in character. As the party continued, people found themselves drawn to the girl, asking questions, engaging in conversation, eager to learn more about the mysterious heiress who had entered unnoticed and now commanded admiration. Evelyn retreated to a corner, observing helplessly as her dominance over the room vanished, realizing that public humiliation can backfire in ways she never imagined. The girl, however, remained graceful, responding to the attention with politeness, never flaunting her father's presence, but allowing her character to speak for itself. That night, the hall would remember not the mistress's cruelty, but the quiet power of a girl who, despite appearances, was destined to rise above insults, proving that strength comes from within and that no mockery can diminish true dignity. The following days after the incident in the Grand Hall were a whirlwind of tension, curiosity, and subtle power shifts. As everyone who had attended the party could not stop talking about the poor girl who had turned out to be the daughter of the richest man in the country, Evelyn, the mistress, found herself haunted by the memory of that moment, her pride wounded more deeply than she cared to admit, as she realized that her public humiliation had revealed her arrogance and cruelty to the very people she wanted to impress. No matter how she tried to regain control, whispers followed her in every hallway, murmurs of scorn hidden behind polite smiles. And the knowledge that her mistake had been witnessed by influential figures left her sleepless at night.
Meanwhile,
the girl returned to her daily life, which had always been modest, but now carried a new awareness of the world she had been born into, yet had lived outside of. She was careful not to flaunt her father's wealth or authority, choosing instead to continue her life with humility, patience, and a quiet determination to prove that her worth lay in her character, intellect, and the compassion she carried. For others, despite her father's insistence that she enjoy privileges, she often declined, preferring simple outings, volunteering, spending time with people who were genuine and kind, rather than those drawn by her wealth. This only made her more admired among those who valued sincerity, and her reputation began to grow silently but steadily. Contrasting sharply with Evelyn's diminishing influence, Evelyn tried to maintain her social presence, attending events, hosting gatherings, and projecting an image of sophistication, but the shadow of her humiliation lingered. Each time she encountered someone who had witnessed the party, she felt a pang of shame, and her attempts to dominate or insult others were now met with subtle resistance or polite dismissal. It was as if the world had quietly shifted under her feet, and she had no idea how to reclaim her place. The girl, however, moved forward with grace, never seeking revenge but letting her presence speak louder than words. One afternoon, the girl was invited to a charity gala where the city's most influential figures gathered to raise funds for the underprivileged. She arrived in a simple but elegant dress, carrying herself with a confidence that radiated kindness and intelligence. Guests whispered among themselves, recalling the story of the girl who had been mocked and yet now commanded respect. Evelyn, present at the same event, watched with a mixture of fear, envy, and disbelief as attention naturally gravitated toward the girl.
Their people sought our conversation,
Valued her opinions, and even asked for her guidance in charitable decisions. Recognizing the wisdom and humility she brought to every interaction, the mistress tried to approach, intending to maintain her status and assert superiority, but found herself ignored or politely excused, her attempts at dominance now appearing petty and desperate. The girl, noticing Evelyn's presence, offered a gentle smile, not of mockery, but of quiet understanding, demonstrating that she held no ill will and that her strength lay not in retaliation, but in rising above cruelty. This only deepened Evelyn's frustration as she realized that power did not come from wealth alone, nor did fear and intimidation guarantee respect. Instead, respect followed character, integrity, and the courage to face adversity without losing one's dignity. As the gala progressed, a series of conversations revealed to the attendees just how capable, intelligent, and compassionate the girl truly was. She had a keen mind for business, a heart for philanthropy, and the ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Every compliment, every gesture of acknowledgement, every polite invitation she received further highlighted the contrast between her genuine influence and Evelyn's hollow presence. Evelyn's panic grew as she saw people she had considered inferior now seeking guidance from the girl, admiring her quiet authority and warmth. She had tried to control appearances, to dominate social circles through intimidation and wealth, but she now faced a reality where true influence came from sincerity, kindness, and personal strength. The girl's father watched with pride, observing how his daughter navigated complex social situations with tact and compassion, never allowing the burden of sudden attention to overshadow her values or humility. He had feared that exposure to high society might corrupt her or overwhelm her. But instead, she handled it with grace, proving that upbringing, character, and inner strength mattered more than titles, gowns, or riches. The mistress, meanwhile, attempted to host her own gatherings to reclaim her social standing, but invitations were met with polite refusals, and conversations at her events often turned to discussions of the girl's achievements, the charity she had initiated, or her thoughtful insights into current affairs. The humiliation she had suffered was now amplified by comparison, and every effort to assert control felt weaker than before. People who once feared her quietly celebrated her decline in influence, and she found herself isolated despite her wealth. A lesson in the true power of humility versus arrogance. One day, Evelyn approached the girl privately, attempting to justify her past cruelty and perhaps reclaim some dignity. She spoke with forced politeness, trying to appear superior while subtly testing the girl's response. The girl listened patiently, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the mistress's anxious energy. She replied with simple words, "I bear no grudge, and I hope you can learn that kindness and respect bring more strength than cruelty and mockery." Evelyn was taken aback, unprepared for the grace and composure in the girl's tone. It was not fear that silenced her, but the quiet power of someone who had endured adversity without allowing it to corrupt her heart. The realization that she had wasted her efforts on humiliation, their power over others was temporary and shallow, hit Evelyn deeply, and she left without response. Carrying the weight of her own choices, from that day on, the girl's life moved forward with quiet brilliance. Invitations arrived not because of her father's wealth, but because of her own merits, her kindness, and the authenticity she projected. She established initiatives to help the underprivileged, giving scholarships, mentorships, and support to those who reminded her of herself in earlier years. Her influence grew organically, respected and admired by peers, strangers, and even former critics, while Evelyn faded into irrelevance, her attempts at control forgotten in the shadow of the girl's genuine accomplishments. Each encounter, each event, and each success reminded the social circle that humility, courage, and dignity cannot be bought, and that those who seek to diminish others often reveal their own weakness. The girl's story spread quietly but powerfully, inspiring those who had once felt invisible or powerless to recognize that character, resilience, and grace are far stronger than wealth or cruelty. Evelyn's missteps became a cautionary tale, whispered privately among the elite, while the girl continued to rise, not through vengeance or confrontation, but through kindness, intelligence, and unwavering self-respect. Even those who had once mocked her came to admire her, realizing that true strength is not loud or arrogant, but measured, deliberate, and compassionate. By the end of the year, the girl had established herself not only as a respected heiress, but as a beloved figure in society. Known for her philanthropic endeavors, sharp intellect, and ability to inspire others without seeking glory. Watching from afar could only reflect on the consequences of her actions. Understanding too late that cruelty, mockery, and arrogance lead only to isolation, while humility, strength, and integrity forge lasting respect and influence. The girl, meanwhile, remained grounded, never forgetting her roots, never allowing wealth or power to corrupt her heart, and continuing to prove that true richness lies in character, empathy, the courage to face life with dignity and kindness, no matter how others choose to treat you. The turning point in the girl's life came when she was invited to the annual charity ball, a prestigious event where the city's elite gathered to celebrate wealth, influence, and philanthropy, unaware that the evening would mark a profound shift in social power and perception. She arrived with quiet elegance, her dress simple yet graceful, her presence commanding attention, not through extravagance, but through confidence, poise, and the aura of someone who had endured hardship and emerged stronger. Whispers followed her entrance, recalling the incident months ago when she had been mocked in public. Now amplified by the knowledge that she was the daughter of a billionaire and a woman of remarkable character, Evelyn, present at the ball with her usual attempt at sophistication, froze upon seeing her, her mind recalling every insult, every sneer, and every moment she had used to humiliate the girl. The memory was sharp and stinging, now magnified by the girl's calm dominance over the room. Guests approached the girl with admiration, some apologizing discreetly for any past judgment, others simply drawn to her intelligence, warmth, and the humility she carried effortlessly. The girl smiled politely, acknowledging each with grace, her demeanor a stark contrast to Evelyn's flustered and desperate attempt to maintain relevance. The mistress had prepared herself to assert authority, but she quickly realized that her influence had diminished, that people no longer feared her, and that her cruel tactics now made her appear insecure and petty. The girl's father, standing nearby with a quiet pride that shone in his eyes, observed how naturally she navigated the social dynamics, commanding respect without arrogance, gaining attention through her wisdom and integrity rather than wealth alone. As the evening progressed, the girl was invited to speak before the gathering, an opportunity she accepted not for vanity, but to inspire, to demonstrate the power of perseverance, kindness, and dignity. She addressed the crowd with clarity, recounting stories of her upbringing, her experiences facing judgment and mockery, and the lessons she had learned about true wealth and influence. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, sparking murmurs of admiration and reflection, as people began to recognize that the values of humility, respect, and compassion far outweighed ostentation, cruelty, or social dominance. Evelyn, standing in a corner, felt the weight of her own past actions, recognizing that every insult she had delivered, every moment of ridicule, had been a futile attempt to assert superiority over someone whose strength lay in courage and character rather than titles, or possessions. The girl's message, delivered with poise and authenticity, rippled through the room. And soon, invitations, conversations, and attention naturally gravitated toward her, leaving Evelyn marginalized despite her efforts to regain prominence. The girl's influence grew rapidly, not because of her father's wealth, but because of the genuine respect and admiration she inspired through action, thoughtfulness, and the way she treated every individual with dignity, regardless of their social status. Evelyn attempted a few subtle maneuvers, trying to redirect attention to herself. But her tactics fell flat, often backfiring as guests now saw her behavior for what it truly was: insecurity disguised as authority. Meanwhile, the girl continued her charitable work, establishing foundations, mentoring young women, and contributing to causes that uplifted the underprivileged, further solidifying her reputation as a compassionate leader and visionary. Her efforts were recognized publicly, and she became a figure of inspiration, admired not for her wealth, but for the values she represented and the courage she demonstrated in facing adversity without bitterness. Evelyn, increasingly isolated, began to understand the consequences of her past behavior. The girl's ascent was not fueled by revenge, but by integrity, perseverance, and a refusal to let cruelty dictate her path. Every success, every acknowledgement, and every expression of admiration the girl received served as a silent reminder to Evelyn of her misjudgment and arrogance. One evening, the girl hosted a dinner for influential philanthropists in business, leaders inviting guests who had once doubted her capabilities or dismissed her presence. Evelyn was present, though not by invitation, but through her habitual attempt to maintain connections. And she watched as the girl effortlessly engaged with people, offering insights, sharing experiences, and fostering genuine connections. The atmosphere was warm, respectful, and filled with admiration for the young woman who had once been mocked publicly. Guests approached Evelyn cautiously, some acknowledging the girl's influence, others discreetly sharing their impressions of her vision and accomplishments, leaving Evelyn in a quiet state of reflection and regret. The girl, noticing Evelyn's presence, approached with a gentle smile. Not in confrontation, but with grace, demonstrating the strength that comes from overcoming adversity without malice. "I hope you are doing well," she said softly, her tone kind yet firm, carrying the subtle authority of someone who had triumphed through character rather than cruelty. Evelyn, unable to respond immediately, felt a wave of realization wash over her. She had attempted to humiliate, dominate, and belittle, yet it was the girl's integrity, courage, and humility that had earned lasting respect. While her own attempts had left her diminished in influence and reputation, true power comes not from wealth, social status, or fear, but from character, respect, and the courage to treat others with dignity regardless of circumstances. Over time, Evelyn retreated from social prominence, her arrogance tempered by reflection, while the girl's life continued to flourish, her reputation expanding through both public acknowledgement and the quiet, profound impact of her charitable work, mentoring, and leadership. Her influence became a symbol of hope, showing that adversity can be transformed into strength and that those who face injustice with grace emerge, not only victorious, but admired and respected. The story of her public humiliation, once a source of potential shame, transformed into a testament to resilience, inspiring countless individuals to embrace dignity, integrity, and compassion in their own lives. In the end, the girl stood as a figure of true power, her father's presence a silent testament to her lineage, but her accomplishments and influence entirely her own, built on the foundation of courage, humility, and unwavering character. Evelyn, looking back on every insult, every moment of cruelty, realized too late that mockery never builds influence, and that those who wield kindness, strength, and respect quietly shape the world around them. The girl's journey from being publicly mocked to commanding admiration came a narrative repeated in whispers and conversations across the city, a story of triumph over cruelty, of character prevailing over arrogance, and of the enduring truth that wealth may open doors, but dignity and compassion sustain influence and respect far beyond the reach of mere money. Her life continued to shine, touching lives, inspiring change, and demonstrating that the real power lies not in the ability to humiliate, but in the courage to rise above adversity and lead with heart, wisdom, and unwavering grace. And in that, she became untouchable, not by force or fear, but by the quiet, enduring strength of her character, a legacy that would be remembered long after fleeting moments of mockery were forgotten.